Welcome on all to another edition of the Defo Show with Lubie here on the 5 Reasons Sports Network, brought to you by Water Cleanup of Florida. The weather is Florida, baby. And whether it's hot or we get occasional cold or it's warm or it's cool in the quote-unquote winter time, that can do a number on our home or our office. But no worries. You have Water Cleanup of Florida in your corner, 954-579-0356, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Any issues with your home or office, water or fire, call them, 954-579-0356, and they'll be there for you. My wife and I were really grateful to Michael, Robert, George, their entire team, and their 60 years or more by now of combined experience because of just how, not only they're great at communication, not only they come out and they get the job done, not only they correct whatever was wrong with the home or office, but because of their licensed, certified, insured contractors, they'll make it look brand new, and it's only one company. You don't have to call or reach out to multiple places to get one job done. Water Cleanup of Florida, 954-579-0356. They will take care of what ails you when it comes to your home or office with water or fire damage. Check them out on their website, WCUFL.com, and on the socials at Water Cleanup FL. Water Cleanup of Florida. I'm telling you, if you have the schmutz, they have the guts. The Heat haven't had a lot of guts lately. Losers of 7 in a row. It's been very disappointing. A team that is sort of, it felt like they were figuring out, even with injury issues, Jaime Jaquez Jr. is playing well. You had Robinson playing well. You had Jovic playing well. Well, now you have everyone. And you make the trade for Rozier. They were already losers of 4 in a row. They've now lost 7 in a row. So it's dark days for the Miami Heat. So we don't talk too much about the Miami Heat today. But the Miami Dolphins did have an interesting year. Not like the Heat. They didn't go to a finals, but they did make the playoffs for the second straight year for the first time in like 20 years. They did find their way, even with loads of injuries, to stay in a playoff game on the road versus the Kansas City Chiefs, the team that is now in the big game in the Super Bowl. They now are making another coaching change. No, not with Mike McDaniel, but their defensive coordinator, Vic Fangio, out. Who's in? We talk about it this week on the Pigskin Playbook with WFOR CBS 4's John Congemi right here on the Defo Show with Lubie on the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
Well, welcome to the show. Good to be with you guys. We have this handsome gentleman here who, knocked it out of the park all season long covering the Miami Dolphins. Not much to say about them, although there have been some changes. My mind keeps going through them changes to speculate upon. And, of course, we had the conference championship game, so we're going to break away from our moratorium about Super Bowl talk to accommodate the great one himself, Mr. John Congemi, brought to you by Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill, which, with a little chill in the air, what a perfect day. Ideal. Bright, sunny skies here and perfect temperatures. Be nice to catch those breezes right off the Gulf there, John, and get down there to Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill. How are you, my friend? How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing terrific. I say we hop on Tom Fox's yacht and just take it right down to Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill. It'd be a perfect day for that.
Worked for me.
I met a guy. We were having a little gathering at the Bamboo Beach Tiki Bar. Lubie was in attendance there also, orchestrated and organized by the lovely and talented Leslie Visser. A lot of nice people there. And one of the guys was a St. Thomas guy. Of course, when people introduce themselves to me, I never remember the name 2 seconds later. But he said he played, I think he played with you, John Congemi. And right. I wish I could remember the gentleman's name because he was a real nice guy. He was a big fan of all of our shows and looked like he could still play, much like you. Is that a thing about St. Thomas guys? Because Tommy Fox stays in shape. Lubie and I are going to have like big pot bellies by the time, all is said and done.
I haven't seen the majority of the guys, but most of the guys that I went to school with, they all kind of, keep up with staying in shape, at least trying to a little bit.
Yeah, it was, a phenomenon. Every guy you meet, he's still working out in the gym and things of that nature. All right, I saw you on a kind of a postscript show with Kim Bokamper and Mike Cunio on Channel 4. You guys have been doing a great job covering the Dolphins all year, so just wanted to touch on that before we get into the championship games and, of course, the upcoming Super Bowl. And I guess, the big story was Vic Fangio leaving. Did you anticipate that? He got the Philadelphia job. I don't know if he had ties to that organization that were far stronger of a bond than they had to the Dolphins. Were there differences of opinion as to how things should go? He was the one older guy on this staff, and Now there's speculation that even Brandon Staley might be one of the candidates there, which it's good if he's defensive coordinator because he can't go for all of those fourth downs and impossible situations, which
Right.
unfortunately afflicted Dan Campbell also and might have cost the Lions a chance to go to the bowl. But what's that storyline? I mean, how is that playing out in your mind? Because I saw you speculating about people that might come in and replace him, and what was the story behind Fangio's departure?
I never really got any news kind of behind the scenes to say what happened, but
Yeah.
just my opinion on it was he was tied to Philadelphia. I think the timing of the Dolphin job and the Philadelphia job, had it reversed and been last year, Vic Fangio, when he was an analyst for the Philadelphia Eagles the year prior to joining the Dolphins, probably would have been a natural step to take the DC job in Philly had it become available last year.
Yeah.
So, that was the common thread. He's from that area. He's grew up in that area, although he's coached all over the place. Probably, felt like his roots could get back there, and he probably enjoyed his time being an analyst, for the Eagles during their run to the Super Bowl. So I don't know if there was any tension or maybe different thoughts of opinion on how to run things when he was the defensive coordinator at the Miami Dolphins. But afterwards, you did hear players come out and they didn't really feel all that bad about Vic Fangio taking off and leaving for the Eagle job.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
what does that? What does that? Sorry to cut you off, John. What does that tell you? Like, I look. A lot of time, I get it. Players don't always like coaches. That doesn't mean that the coach isn't doing a good job necessarily. But he's supposedly this. I've never heard the word beloved, but he's respected. One of the more highly accomplished defensive coordinators. Right. That's when the Dolphins literally were in a bidding war to get him. He has been a head coach before. He's one of these great defensive minds. But it felt like there was a few different players, and they were high-level players that were openly not happy once he left with his stay here. What does that say to you? What do you do with that?
The only thing I will say, picture this in your mind. Why hasn't Bill Belichick gotten a job in the NFL if you're considering him, if not the best, one of the best, arguably the best, however you want to phrase it, coach ever in the National Football League? The player that you're coaching today is going to be the birth of the NIL baby in college football.
Yep.
They don't want to be ridden hard. They don't want to be told no. They do not want to be wrong. So you have to patty cake a lot of things when you phrase it to players. Now, there are certain players that want to be taught yes and no, and that was wrong, and this is the way you should do it. But everybody coming out in this type of mentality now that you're getting from youth football to high school football now, there are even rumors now they're going to pay high school players. If that happens, forget about it. It's over, right?
Wow.
But college players now, you're coming out, and they've gone to 4 universities to play 3 years of football just because they couldn't get on the field and stay on the field where they were at. Most of the guys. So you're going to have to coach that player in the National Football League, and you've got a guy with an Archie Bunker mentality. I'm not saying Vic Fangio is like that, but you've got Eminem coaching your football team. Hey, everybody's good. Everybody's good.
That is the thing. Like, you're sending mixed signals with McDaniel there, and then this guy.
How are you going to get guys? How are you going to kiss everybody's ass?
Yeah.
Right? So if you're not that type of player, it isn't going to work. So I feel like you have to be able to kind of toe the line. And I think that's why McDaniels is so good at what he does. He's got everybody, he's trying to bring everybody involved. But if you've got a defensive coordinator that's going, hey, I'm not playing the rookie because he's a liability. And all of a sudden the rookie goes into a shell, and you've got a 2-year guy that's arguably a top 5 player at his position that doesn't agree with you and that kind of pouts during the meetings. I'm not saying all this happens, but I can imagine it. I've been in those meetings. I've seen those scenarios. That dynamic isn't going to jive, and it's not going to go over well.
You know, and I couldn't help but think there was an image of Bill Belichick that popped up, and he's walking the streets with, in an area where there are many homeless people occupying the turf there, and just mumbling, disheveled shell of his physical self, and he's just mumbling, Raheem fucking Morris? Are you kidding me? Who may be more relatable, I don't know, than Bill Belichick is at this point.
There you go again.
Yeah.
That's the
relatable.
scenario.
That's the word relatable.
Yeah.
Okay, when I picture Bill Belichick on the sidelines, I've got the hoodie with the ski mask, and all I can see is his eyes, and just moving around. So that's what you have, and you're going to have an opportunity to either hire that person who's has a wealth of knowledge and is one of the best to ever do it, or you're going to get a guy that's more relatable, that had been in your system, that is younger, and that you feel like is going to be a good bridge to what you have now with the Atlanta Falcons. That was, that's probably the decision that where it came at the end.
Yeah, maybe so. Fangio, I mean, statistically did well.
He
Dolphins
did great.
defense finished up 10th in the league. Of course, they were shattered, decimated by injuries at the end. So I don't know that you can necessarily say that, he ended up kind of flopping and, falling on his face a little bit as a defensive coordinator. He was limited in what he could do. And, you're bringing in, as people say, the now cliche is they were bringing in guys off the streets. They literally were. So it was an interesting tenure there because it didn't seem like, especially early in the year, it didn't seem like, all of the fanfare and hyperbole that surrounded his acquisition was justified. And yet when you look at what happened overall and then towards, I guess from about the midway point of the season, maybe a little sooner through the last couple of weeks when things started to fall apart from an injury standpoint, Dolphins defense was pretty formidable, and it was a big factor, and they could do what a defense needs to accomplish sometimes, and that is make up for some of the flaws that you're experiencing on offense or having an off day. All right. So any idea who might be the next guy? Could it be Brandon Staley, who I guess was well respected before he became a head coach and started making all of those idiotic play calls and decisions?
Well, it could be Desai, the guy that was relieved of his duties in Philadelphia. It could be Leslie Frazier, who was a former DC in Buffalo. It might even be Campanelli, the linebacker coach that's on staff that, kind of was pushed to the forefront in the Hard Knocks episodes. He might get an opportunity. I know he interviewed for the Giants defensive coordinator job. So you have a number of different people. Leslie Frazier being one of the older.
I think he just interviewed for a head coaching job somewhere.
He did. He did. But you're going to have a mix of 40-ish type of guys and younger players, younger coaches that either had head coach experience, were head coaches, were defensive coordinators, were position coaches. I kind of think it's going to come down to a guy on the staff internally that's there now that knows who's on the roster, who's around, or it's going to be a guy that is well respected from somewhere else. Because if you look at what Fangio did, all he did from the middle of the season on was coach really well the next man up mentality, because that's all you had left on the Dolphins defense after all those starters went down, and they consistently got better. So if you feel like you have enough talent on that side and you're crossing your fingers that most of the guys that were injured for the remainder of the season when that injury occurred are going to be back for training camp and be ready to go for September, other than probably Nick Chubb, or Bradley Chubb, then you're in a situation where you've got a lot of players coming back. Now, obviously, they're going to have to make a decision on Christian Wilkins. They're going to have to make a decision on Xavier Howard. They're going to probably make some moves in free agency and in the draft at linebacker, add another corner, depending on Chubb's absence, maybe even get another guy on the edge. But they should be pretty good on the defensive side. Now you got to get a guy to kind of get in the kitchen and figure out how to make that team or that side of the football even more elite, so that you can beat the Buffaloes and the Baltimores and the Kansas Cities of the world. Because if you can't compete with those three teams, you're not going anywhere in the AFC.
So you don't see okay. Because the thing is, from a football standpoint, as annoying as the defense could be at times, the fact that they were down 6 starters and somehow hung in that game, hung in the last 2 games, the Bills and the Chiefs, the defense wasn't their issue. But if you look at the personnel, it did feel like there was sort of a contradiction between the way he played defense and the personnel they had, right? Like, his defense is usually rely on strong linebacker play. The Dolphins don't have that. His defenses usually are all about zone, but when you have really good corners, that sort of the zone sort of fucking wastes the really good corners. Xavier Howard, even when he was healthy, looked lost. People thought he was done. I don't think he was done. I think he was lost. I think he's used to being an aggressive man, and they're having him play like the rover. Like, he doesn't know how to do that. Jalen Ramsey, since his FSU days, knows how to play multiple positions, so he figured it out. But you know he was pissed. He mentioned 3 straight games. Yeah, well, I wish they would let me cover the best receiver. Like he said it openly. I get it. Their defense did come to rise to the occasion, but it did feel from a play level, from a defensive standpoint, there was some issues. Am I wrong? Like, I know they did a good job. They ended up being a top 10 defense with injuries all season long, and I still feel like I don't know. It felt like the player more than just these spoiled brats. I mean, Xavier Howard and Jalen Ramsey are veterans. They don't, whatever. They respect a guy that knows what he's doing. They just want to win. Like, a lot of it did feel like there was an issue from the old guy that has to run his system no matter who the players are, and the players being the players trying to play their best game.
Yeah, there's probably a little of that. But I would say, too, Lubie, if you're down to your if you're down to a 35-year-old coming off the street rushing the passer, you better try to create some pressure, right?
Yep.
So I think Vic Fangio changed what he believed in a little bit to fit the players that he had available, and I think it worked to a certain extent because it wasn't like Buffalo and Kansas City were running the Dolphins out of the gym, right? They were in those games. And if the offense had done anything in terms of being able to score on average what they scored during the regular season, you probably win. You know, I don't know if you win, but you have a chance in the fourth quarter to win the game. You know, you're down to a possession or two, or a field goal, or a bad bounce, or a tip pass to be able to change momentum in a game. And all of a sudden now you make 1 or 2 more plays and you're moving on. So, or you win the AFC, or there's so many scenarios down the stretch that the Dolphins had in play, and it all comes back to that 4 minutes and 29 seconds, whatever it was, against Tennessee.
Yeah.
They have the season set up for them. They're going to beat Pittsburgh at home in a playoff game, and you're in the second round. Now you're knocking at the door. So they put themselves in a good spot. They just didn't finish the deal. And when they exposed themselves to Buffalo, Baltimore, and Kansas City. And, you swing and a miss on those guys, and you're at home watching.
Clash of the Titans, man. That's going to haunt them all throughout the offseason. And hopefully, they'll adhere to Mike McDaniel and his advice, which is, we have to learn from adversity. You hear that all the time. Maybe they learned the lesson in that ballgame. All right, Dan Campbell, that was the big story coming out.
We always enjoy talking to John Congemi on these Pigskin playbooks. The Dolphins are an interesting situation. Yes, Vic Fangio, it's funny. There was a lot of questions at the end when he was done, but he did a good job. The Dolphins, I think, had a top 10 defense, at least scoring-wise. Yeah, they gave a lot of yards, but scoring-wise, a top 10 defense. They were down half their starting defense by the end of the year and held a good Bills and Chiefs offense to under 30 points. They kept their team in the game, again, to try and win the division at the end of the year and to win their first playoff game in over 20 years against the Chiefs. And the offense was what let them down, to be brutally honest. But there were some weird signs with Vic Fangio. We heard some weird things at the end when it came to the players and Fangio. Fangio is now going to be the defensive coordinator in Philadelphia. We'll see who the Dolphins tab as their DC. We'll also see if the Miami Heat can get out of their own freaking way. Been a rough 7 games. It's just annoying because 4 games were versus teams that weren't good and were going through struggles of their own. So the Heat should have padded their record for these next 3 games that were tough. And they got totally bludgeoned and annihilated. They usually find their way. I'm getting a little concerned. Again, it's a regular season. Again, it's not even the All-Star break, so we know Jimmy Butler and the Heat are so-so about that. But 7 games in a row is 7 games in a row. And they don't look good. They look like a daisical. They look out of it on both ends of the floor, offense and defense. And it is becoming an issue. Coach Spo is the guy that seems to figure these things out. We'll see how quickly he figures that out. We'll definitely talk more about that. Check us out each and every morning, 8 to 9 on South Florida Live. Check us out on our podcast, nofilter.net, or just Google The Morning Briefing, Caffeine TV. Check us out each and every day. We also are with Mike Mayo doing the Lunchbox if you want to hear us talk about food. And if you want to hear us talk about our South Florida interests, our South Florida opinions, sports-wise, right here, the Defo Show with Lubie on the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
From the newly renovated sports bar to the beautiful bayside views captured at the Tiki Bar, Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill has it all. Located at mile marker 104, the Big Chill also offers waterfront dining while experiencing breathtaking sunset views of the Florida Keys. It's simply the hottest spot in the Keys to cool off. That's Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill at mile marker 104 in Key Largo. For more information, call today at 305-453-9066.
These days, we're all looking for comfort anywhere we can find it. Thank goodness for Landlubbers Raw Bar and Grill in Plantation, because they are making sure you are as comfortable as possible. First of all, they're not only open for delivery and pickup. All you have to do is go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both pickup and free delivery. You're going to have the best wings in the world. You're going to have a great burger. You're going to have their amazing soups. Again, Landlubbers, Raw Bar, and Grill. It's nice and easy. Just go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both your pickup and free delivery. Thank goodness for Landlubbers for making you always feel right at home.
Hey, folks, Tony Segreto here. Let me ask you a question. What do you look for when you go out to eat? Good food, obviously. Friendly atmosphere, not too loud, but good energy, reasonable prices, and a place where you feel comfortable. All those ingredients, no pun meant there, are hard to find unless you're talking about the Texas Roadhouse. You see, they encompass all of those attributes. Really, really good food, amazing atmosphere, good for a family, good for a date, or just a night out for yourself, and prices that will make you extremely happy. Their ribs, unmatched. Steaks, hand-cut every day. Everything, and I mean everything, is made on site, including their incredible bread. It's the one day, folks, that you can forget about low-carb diets. Trust me when I tell you, Texas Roadhouse, your restaurant, your destination when you say, where should we go and eat tonight?